Hi everyone, so as you can probably tell by the state of my tash, a bit of time's passed, to be specific, a week has passed since I was out in the field. And as I didn't record an ending clip to that episode, I thought that I would do one in the studio, or in this was the bedroom really. So I thought it'd be quite fun to look back at the images, tell you a bit more about what I think of them, and do a bit of critique really. It was quite interesting sort of stepping back, and a week later you're able to sort of see the images in a bit more of a neutral light, so you've sort of forgotten a bit about how beautiful it was and how much you enjoyed the time, and you can sort of stand back and go, yes, that is a very good image, or actually that is not as good as I thought it was in the moment. So yeah, let's begin. So you'll have just seen this image once again, and now what I'm going to do is just to break down the image, discuss why I like it, and what really appeals. Since I've shown this to a few people, just friends and things, it's gone down extremely well, which is lovely because I like it, they like it. And it's sort of, yeah, nice to know. And it may be a contender for my calendar next year as well. I think it's such a calming photograph that I think it's just the sort of image that you want to see in a calendar, really. So looking at the photograph, my pen was a bit of a directional. What I really like is the way the path leads you into the center of the image, or to the center point of the image anyway. At which point you lose where the path is going off to, and your eye then wanders amongst the trees. And what's ideal is that the point at which the path ends is sort of on a parallel with when the trees begin. So you've got this really natural flow in the image. Your eye gets to here and then it wanders around. And because from this side all the way through to this side we have interest, the eye can sort of take the time to sort of explore the image, see the different types of trees, see the way the light's falling on the trees, and then sort of come back to the bluebells. And what's quite interesting about this image is that you've got the brackens in the foreground here, but there's no specific interest there. So normally I like to have a really key feature, but you don't with this image. You've got lots of nice touches. Well, actually, no. Most of my images, I like to try and include a few different things, because then your eye wanders and then you see more, and then the image has more depth to it. And I think that's what's key here. Another photograph, key point at which it comes to compositionally with the trees, every single tree is separate to the next. So even like this tree here in the background, either side it's got the space to be its own tree, which sounds really weird, but I was thinking to myself when I first saw this on the computer, I was like, why is that such a nice image? And I think that's one of the things that subconsciously my mind likes, how clean it is and how organized it is almost. And then with this lovely directional light, you can see it's hitting the right at the bottom of these oak trees, which is what I hoped for, but it isn't casting any light on the bluebells in the foreground here, and that's a really nice feature of the image as well. That sense of calm, but the warmth from the light in the morning. Yeah, so that's this image. Oh, and another little thing, in the video I spoke about how the mist was in the background here. And I actually quite like that, because it's giving a little bit of a white, an element of a white tone, which again just gives a bit of intrigue, because you start looking in that corner and it really helps with the shapes of the trees, but you're not entirely sure why it's white. It could be frost, or it could be anything really. And that white contrasts nicely with the dark of the holly here. So you've got a nice tonal range in the background. But let's move on to the next. So I discussed this image quite a lot in the field, the contrast between the light and the dark, but I thought I would go through a few other little details of the image that are really important to me. I do much prefer this this dawn photograph rather than the first light. So if I just go this way, it's such a, like, even on the little screen there that I can sort of see on my phone. Oh no, not that way. There's such a difference with this shot. If we then compare it between this one and this one really benefits from the light. You've got directional light that's hitting that bluebell or bluebells, and really picking it up, so your eye knows where to look. The dark tones on in the background here sort of add an intrigue, but they lead your eye back to the bluebells. And I think that's one of the key things with this photograph, really. So looking at this photograph compositionally, what I really like is how I've deliberately tried to frame the leaves here and the leaves here right up to the edges of the silver birch either side, because even from a distance here you can see that the gap here is the same as the gap here. So although the tree is quite expressive, I've tried to keep it framed within the actual picture to give it a bit more structure. Another element of that same sort of mental thinking would be the oak tree here. The oak tree here is sitting nice and central in the image. I sort of had to put it there, to be honest with you. Or I had to put the tree against it, because as lovely as this tree is, I couldn't move the oak tree behind it. So if you had the oak tree slightly off centre either way, then it would have looked really unbalanced, and your eye would have sort of led towards that oak tree rather than to staying on this silver birch. And obviously the most interesting thing about the silver birch is the detail here. Your eye sort of sees that first and then sort of wanders around the image again. I've deliberately shot this with a shallow depth of field so that you're focused on the birch, on the silver birch, rather than on any of the bluebells behind. And by shooting at shallow depth of field, all this is really nice and soft in the background. As you can see, I've taken this also with a low aperture, but it just doesn't have that same sort of effect, or it does have that same sort of effect, but your eye sort of does tend to wander to these pools of light a lot more. Also, where you've got the sunlight, which branch would it be? This branch here is casting a shadow, so you can't see the detail here so clearly. And also the way the sunlight is catching on these birch in the background here. Here you're sort of exploring the tree a lot more, whereas here you're exploring the background as well as the tree. Yeah, it's still a nice image, but it just isn't quite as effective, I think, anyway. So in a slight contrast to everything that I've just said there, in this image, I actually think I prefer it with the sunlight on, as I've already said. I'm struggling with this one. I do really like this dawn image, and there's nothing technically wrong with it, but I think when I first went to this scene and saw it, my eyes saw this really nice clump of bluebells. And in this scene, I think maybe it's because of the bark of the tree and this bit of ivy. Your eyes aren't locked onto that clump of bluebells first. They sort of see that it's just a really nice scene. Whereas with this one, you're like, wow, what's that? That's a really interesting structure. That clump of bluebells, the way that they're so dense. But yet you're still seeing the bark, you're still seeing the ivy, and you're still seeing all the detail behind. But it just feels a bit more that you're being told where to look. On both the images, I've used the shallow depth of field again, just like with the photo of the silver birch, so throwing all of this out of focus so that I'm sort of telling you where to look. And I've deliberately compositionally used these trees in the background in exactly the same way for each picture. You'll notice here how this shape here is replicated in that shape there. Again, it's making a pleasing image. Your eye, I'm saying, I've deliberately compositionally sort of created that so that you're so that it's pleasing to the eye. That's basically what I mean. Yeah. What I do like in this image, you sort of start to look around and you notice what might be brambles, or that might be an elder, a really young elder. And your eye sort of like has a bit of a walk around the stalks of the bluebells here, stems. It's just quite an interesting image, but I think I prefer this one personally. So that's all of the videos, all the critique videos. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. It was a really enjoyable morning, possibly my favourite morning at the Bluebells, or time at the Bluebells, for the whole of this year, I think. I think it was really nice how the day before I had envisaged shots that I wanted, which is these 3 shots that I've just shown you, and they're exactly what I got. So there was that real nice sense of satisfaction, and it being such a lovely calm morning and really enjoyable, made it all the more enjoyable really, especially to look back on. I think it's probably one of those mornings that I won't forget anytime soon. And yeah, I think this image in particular will be one that I sort of stays with me for a long time. You'll probably see it on a greeting card or something like that soon as well. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this episode, and see you in the next one. And I might do another critique like this at the end of all of these episodes, once I've got my slide film back. I'm actually about to put some Velvia in my film for a future episode. So yeah, stick around and I hope to see you soon. Thank you, bye.